Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. Typhoon Tino continues its sweep of the country, dumping so much rain in several areas. In quake-stricken Cebu alone, at least 18 are already reported killed due to massive flooding.
Now, Tino has yet to leave the country, and already Pag-asa is looking at another typhoon, and this one could be more powerful.
And for the first time, former Public Works Secretary Manny Bonoan is tagged in the flood control fiasco, with the ICI recommending his prosecution.
Typhoon Tino has triggered massive flooding in the country, including in Cebu, where at least 18 people have been reported dead. Almost half of Metro Cebu was inundated in less than 24 hours, including Villa del Rio subdivision, where people had to seek shelter on top of their roofs. When the floodwater subsided, it was a gruesome sight, cars on top of each other. And in Sitio Isla Verde, Barangay San Isidro, rooftops of almost every home were blown off and submerged in flood. In their visit after the severe shower, Cebu City Mayor Nestor Arquival and his team recovered 2 fatalities, both swept away by strong river currents. 10 have been reported missing.
Talisay City was not spared by flooding as well. Snakes, that's right, snakes were randomly seen coming up the floodwaters. Meanwhile, Crocolandia, a crocodile farm in the area, allayed fears that their reptiles have escaped. The park assures that they have protocols in place for their crocodiles, which they strictly follow in times of calamity. Over in Antique, darkness descended at only 3 in the afternoon because of intense winds and rains. Roofs were blown away and power and signal for communications went down. One is reported dead in the province, but this is still up for verification.
Meanwhile, in Agusan del Sur, the Eastern Mindanao Command confirmed a Huey chopper of the Philippine Air Force crashed in a mountainous area in the town of Loreto. The helicopter was supposed to assist in humanitarian and disaster response for Typhoon Tino. There are no details yet on casualties and cause of the crash. Amid Tino's devastation, President Bongbong Marcos said that the government is on top of the situation. He also gave a run-through of those affected by the calamity. That's about 340,000 people in more than 1,300 barangays in Mimaropa and Bicol, Western, Central, and Eastern Visayas, Caraga, and the Negros Island region. Marcos also assured preemptive evacuations have been in place and that the DSWD has pre-positioned food packs and relief goods. The president added that the Energy Department and the National Electrification Administration are working hand-in-hand to quickly resolve power disruptions, while the Public Works Department and other agencies are clearing roads from typhoon debris. For her part, Vice President Sara Duterte said her office is ready to distribute relief items as soon as the executive branch gives them the go signal to do so. She also reminded residents to stay indoors.
And now to give us an update on the ground, we have One News Cebu desk, Dale Israel. Dale, tell us how massive is the devastation from Tino?
Gabi says from the 18 fatalities or 18 people that have been reported dead due to the impact of Typhoon Tino. 6 of them are actually from Cebu province and 5 from Danao City and 1 from Mandaue City following the widespread flooding brought about by the storm. Meanwhile, 12 individuals also remain missing in Villa del Rio in Barangay Bakayan in Cebu City. That's according to Mayor Nestor Arquival. There is a strong possibility that they did not survive, according to him, and search operations now continue in nearby rivers and coastal areas for their bodies. Many areas in Cebu City still have no electricity too. And also here in in many parts of the province. It actually started around, the rain started around 4 a.m. when we felt the wrath of Tino while most of us are asleep. We can hear the creaking sounds of GI sheets, and by 5 a.m., after an hour, we heard reports already that there are flooding in different areas here in Metro Cebu, and that was also the time when the power started to shut down here in the city, and the wind started to subside by around 7 a.m. Says.
So they'll tell us how badly was the rainfall and its effect on the residents in Lapu-Lapu and Cebu, because we understand that 183 millimeters of rain, or almost a month and a half's worth of normal rainfall, was dumped, over several days? Is this the first time you've seen this much rainfall?
It's actually the first time that a storm that this type of rain storm happened and brought also heavy rains, because just like in the Typhoon Odette, that's the most destructive typhoon we had. That's in 2021. There is only a few rains and all wind. Now this time we have we have winds and heavy rains, so most people are anticipating just wind, and that is what actually is being expected by many. But what happened actually was there's a lot of wind and there's a lot of rain also, and that's why people did not expect that much rain and did not expect flooding to happen. Says.
So flooding is unusual, this much flooding, or is it a perennial problem in Cebu?
It's a perennial problem in Cebu actually, but widespread flooding like that, which the flooding happened between 5 a.m. and it subsided only at around 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. That's very long for a flooding in Cebu, because what we have here is flash floods, and after the rain, usually the flooding subsides with the rain. So that's something very, very unusual from what happened here in Cebu. So widespread flooding has also been happening in Liloan, in Mandaue City, in Talisay City also, and Consolacion and Danao City, and in Compostela, where several families actually remain stranded and unable to leave their homes. In Liloan, for example, there is an unfinished flood control project where the water actually found its way to the communities when it should have been directed to the seas. Says.
Dale, did it come with heavy mud flow or just water?
In some areas, here in the city, for example, in Barangay Bakayan in Del Rio, it's mud and brown color of water with brown color, and so there's much of mud and water in there, and also in other parts of the area, like in Liloan, there is also muddy water, all in these flood-stricken areas also.
So aside from the water, mud has to be cleaned out of the homes of residents there?
That's right. They have to, not the people, what the residents are doing now is actually cleaning up the houses after the flood waters subside. Now they have to clean the mud that have come with the water. Actually, they have to do that. They have to clean now.
So
the mud.
Tell us about the power and communications in the province.
Power outages has also been reported, Says, in multiple areas. That's including in the province. It's in Bantayan, Tabogon, Compostela, Santa Fe, Tudela, Bourbon, Sogod, and also Bogo City and Midilien, and then Bantayan and other areas also. The Visayan Electric has also already announced, actually, that it will be restoring areas with little damage by 3 p.m. This afternoon, and now here at the capital, we're experiencing that restoration. We are powered now here with power from the Visayan Electric, but a lot of a wide number of those with Visayan Electric are still not powered yet, and a lot of areas here in Metro Cebu are still unpowered, and that means they have heavy damage brought about, especially by the posts and transformers that are we actually heard that transformers blown by before power actually shut down. Seth.
All right, so Dale, also, Cebu is still reeling from that powerful quake that just occurred several weeks ago. What help is the local government giving to residents who are going to, through the trauma or trauma after trauma, if I may put it that way?
Actually, Seth, there is an intervention or a social intervention being done by sending psychologists and social workers and medical doctors. That happened last week, actually, wherein there are volunteers from the University of the Philippines, Cebu, and USC and USJR who are sending volunteers, psychologists, to the earthquake-stricken towns and cities. They're helping, actually. They're talking to the victims and talking to them. And also, there are also other 40 or 45 of these are from Cebu City government. They're also sending out their own help to talk to the victims of the earthquake.
All right, we thank you for your updates. Dale Israel there reporting live from Cebu City.
And here's the latest on the weather at this hour. Typhoon Tino has maintained its strength as it emerges over the Cebu Sea. Tino's last reported location is somewhere off of Patnongon in Antique. It is moving northwestward at 15 kilometers per hour. Signal number 4 is up over the Calamian and Puyo Islands in Luzon, as well as the central and southern portions of Antique, Iloilo, and Guimaras. Signal number 3, meanwhile, is up over the northernmost tip of mainland Palawan, the rest of Antique, including the Caluyan Islands, as well as Aklan, Capiz, the rest of Iloilo, the northern and central portions of Negros Occidental, and the northern portion of Negros Oriental. Under signal number 2 are the southwestern portion of Masbate, the southern portions of Oriental and Occidental Mindoro and Romblon, and the northern portion of Palawan. The province of Cebu is also under signal number 2, including the Bantayan Island. Signal number 2 is also up in the central portion of Negros Oriental and the rest of Negros Occidental. And under signal number 1 are the southern portions of Quezon and Marinduque, the rest of the Mindoro provinces, including Lubang Island, the rest of Romblon and Masbate, and the central portion of Palawan. Signal number 1 is likewise up over Biliran, the northwestern portion of Leyte, the Camotes Islands, the northern and western portions of Bohol, Siquijor, and the rest of Negros Oriental. As Typhoon Tino traverses the West Philippine Sea, it is forecast to steadily re-intensify even after it exits the Philippine area of responsibility, and that is by tomorrow evening or in the early morning of Thursday, November 6. Meanwhile, Pag-asa is closely monitoring another tropical depression still outside the PAR. Nevertheless, the new weather disturbance is fast absorbing strength from the ocean, and meteorologists are already predicting that it will enter PAR as a super typhoon. Once inside the country, this typhoon will be called Uwan.
Eastern Visayas was hit hard as well by Tino. Aside from the heavy rains, wind gusts were still at its peak when the typhoon struck, leaving widespread damage. And joining us tonight from Tacloban, Leyte is News 5 correspondent Mon Gualvez. Mon, kamusta na ba ang sitwasyon dyan? Gaano kalaki ang pinsala na naiwan ni Tino dyan sa Eastern Visayas?
Pauline, pinadapa ng malakas na hangin at ulan dulot ng bagyong Tino ang malaking bahagi nga ng Eastern Visayas. Partikular, yung mga napuntahan namin, una, yung Eastern Samar, at pangalawa, dito nga rin sa Leyte. Mapunahin ko na yung Eastern Samar, gaya na lamang sa bayan ng Giwan, kung saan isolated pa rin hanggang ngayon ang ilang mga isla doon dahil nga sa matinding pinsalang iniwan ng bagyo. Well, currently, hindi talaga pinapayagan pang pumalaot ang mga sea vessels dahil nga sa malalakas at marataas pa rin na alon. So, technically, all the islands there in Kiwan Town, talagang hindi pa marating ngayon. So, yung isa sa mga problema ng mga kababayan natin at kapatid doon is yung supplies nila that were pre-positioned even before the typhoon hit them, talagang paubos na rin yung stocks in the coming days. So kailangan talaga, according to the LGU of Kiwan, kailangan nilang marating na immediately tomorrow kahit papano itong naturang isla para makapag-replenish ng supplies dahil meron namang enough supplies ang provincial and even the LGU coming from the mainland. Ito kasi mga island barangays na ito, these were damaged talaga, badly hit technically ng Bagyong Tino, no? Dahil nga dito halos tumaan. Particularly dito yan sa Suluan at Homonhon Islands, dito nga sa Giwan Town. Itong dalawang isla na ito, no, talagang lahat ng mga bahay nakadapa, lahat talaga ng mga bubong natanggal, maraming punong nagpagsakan, mga poste ng kuryenteng nabuwal, at talagang yung covered court nga dyan halos natuklap na yung buong bubong at hindi na makilala. Even in mainland Giwan, ganun din ang itsura. Kaya nga, these are the reasons kung bakit nag-declare na rin ng state of calamity ang GU dahil dito sa mga pinsala at dahil nga sa pagiging isolated pa rin ng mga ilang barangays in the said town. At dito naman sa Eastern Samar, or doon naman sa Eastern Samar rather, na kabuuan ng probinsya, fortunately, there were no casualties reported yet. Pero naging malaking problema talaga hanggang ngayon dyan sa probinsya yung communication signal or telephone signal ng mga LGUs and even the people there. Kaya nga ito yung kahapon sa provincial government, no, na maibalik kaagad yan kahit paano para nga mas madali din yung communication nila. Pagdamat wala naman daw naging problema in terms of other areas with their infrastructures, pero yun nga yung communication, yung mabilisan ng pagtugon at pag-alam ng mga sitwasyon nila on the respective areas, yun yung nag-hamper ngayon because of the said situation on the ground, Pauline.
Oo nga, Mon, nakikita namin napakalakas nung hampas nung hangin. But what about flooding, Mon? May mga lugar ba na nakaramdam ng matinding pagbaha?
Eastern Samar is known talaga na madaling binabaha kapag mga malakas ang ulan or may mga ganitong klaseng bagyo. Pero again, this was a surprise. Probably because yung tumama talaga dito sa probinsya or sa probinsya ng Eastern Samar, mas mahangin. Mas malakas yung hangin compared to the rains na bumagsak. Kaya ang sinasabi din ng provincial government, maaaring ito yung mga dahilan kaya hindi rin umapaw kaagad yung tubig sa mga ilog. Kasi kahit sa Northern Samar na contributaries din ng mga ilog na connecting sa Eastern Samar, hindi rin masyadong umulan. So ito yung mga ipinagpapasalamat ng mga tao dahil nga kung sakaling bumaha rin sa kanilang lugar, nako, malaking problema rin ito sa probinsya at sa mga residente dahil nga talagang perennial problem ang pagbaha in Eastern Samar.
And Mon, may nakikita akong report na hirap pa rin ang ilang mga kapatid natin na makontak yung mga mahal nila sa buhay dyan sa Eastern Samar, sa Leyte. Pero ngayon ba naibalik na yung communication lines, pati yung power, electricity?
Yung unahin ko yung communication lines, Pauline, tama ka. Hirap na hirap kahit kami nahirapan dyan sa Eastern Samar. Some towns were actually wala talagang signal at all. Dead spot, technically yung naging buong bayan. Kaya talagang kinakailangan pag gumamit ng mga satellite devices para nga makakonect lamang at makakuha ng signal eventually. Pero sa mga siyempre, sa mga pangkaraniwang tao, hirap yan sa ganyang lagay, no? Kaya talagang marami nagtutungo lamang sa mga munisipyo, nakiki-connect, nakiki-charge eventually dahil yung power, naging problema rin ito sa malaking bahagi ng probinsya dahil nga talagang nung kasagsagan ng bagyo, mula kagabi hanggang ngayong umaga, wala talaga sa malaking bahagi ng Eastern Samar. Ngayong hapon na lamang, unti-unting na ibabalik yan. Pero yung communication line, signal, mukhang ito yung kailangan pa i-double time ng mga telecommunication network are handling these areas.
And finally, Mon, kamusta naman ang sitwasyon sa mga evacuation center? Nakita ko sa report mo, maraming mga senior citizen. So base sa initial assessment ng local government, ano ba yung pinakakailangan ng mga residente dyan ngayon?
Tama ka. Well, luckily, marami naman nagsilikas kaagad dahil nga na maaaring iwan itong Bagyong Tino. So a total of 8,000 families or around 25,000 individuals yung latest count ng provincial government ng Eastern Samar pagdating sa mga nagsili. Unti-unti na rin sila nagsisibalikan kasabay din ng paganda naman na kahit paano or pag-aliwalas naman na ng panahon, malaking bahagi ng probinsya. Pero pinakakailangan pa rin dito, Pauline, is siyempre yung pagkain dahil nga nahirapan din sila ng ilang araw, ilang oras, time yung malinis sa inuming tubig, pero most specifically in the island barangays in Kiwan, mas kailangan nila ngayon ng mga construction materials. So they are appealing, they are actually applying as well for financial assistance para nga makakuha ng dagdag na tulong, pambili ng yero, ng food, panggawa ulit ng kanilang mga bahay na nasira. Kasi kailangan pang i-assess if they are considered those ng mga partially or totally damaged na mga houses. Depende rin kasi yan sa maaaring makuha nilang cash assistance from the DSWD. Pauline.
All right, thank you very much for that report. And do stay safe. That was News 5's Mon Gualvez reporting to us live from Giwan, Eastern Samar.
We're just going to take a very quick break, but coming up, China is not at all pleased with the new defense deal between the Philippines and Canada. That and more stories are next. Keep it here on The Big Story.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. China seems unhappy about the new visiting forces agreement between the Philippines and Canada. In an interview with the Ukrainian national news agency, Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Mao Ning emphasized that, quote, countries' defense and security cooperation should not target any third party or harm their interests. To flex muscle and stoke confrontation is not conducive to regional peace and stability. No details have yet been released about the pact, which still has to undergo ratification by Congress. This is the 5th VFA of the Philippines, with 4 others being with the US, Australia, Japan, and New Zealand. Now let's discuss this defense pact further with the Vice President of Research and Strategy at the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada, Vina Najibullah. Good evening. Welcome to The Big Story, Vina.
Good evening. Wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, we'll discuss China later on.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the pact first.
Yes.
So the Philippines is the first VFA with
For Canada.
For
Yes.
Canada.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a huge milestone. Very excited that I'm here the few days after this big event for Canada-Philippine relations. It deepens an already good partnership that we have together on many spheres, including defense. As you mentioned, it's the very first such agreement for Canada in this region. Historically, Canada has done quite a bit with NATO, of course, and the United States, but we are relatively new to the region when it comes to these kinds of partnerships. So it's really exciting, and I think it's a testament to the relationship that we have with Philippines, that Philippines was the first country chosen. As you probably know, we have a rich people-to-people relations, more than 1 million Filipino Canadians in Canada. We also have obviously a robust relationship on trade and economy. And for the last 3 years, since the launch of our Indo-Pacific strategy, there's also been more in this sphere of defense.
So who'll follow next?
You mean which country we will take next?
Who'll follow the Philippines?
So it's obviously very hard to follow Philippines. Philippines is unique and powerful in its own way. But I think we have a robust relationship with Japan and Korea as well. So we are expanding our security partnerships with them, in part because of kind of the geography of the North Pacific. There's growing threats from China, Russia, DPRK, and we see the North Pacific as sort of a gateway to our Arctic. So I think we'll see a lot more there. But of course, for Philippines and for this particular pact, Canada is a trading nation, and we're so invested in keeping sea lanes open and free so that we're able to continue to benefit from trade with the region. And so much of that trade goes through South China Sea or West Philippine Sea. And we've seen so much tension in the region. So that's why I think it's really important for Canada to have this robust defense and security partnership with the Philippines, to be able to be contributing to maintaining that peace and stability that has served us so well.
Will it come with military assistance, hardware?
Yes, so everything from training, joint exercises, as well as military assistance, partnerships in the defense industrial cooperation. So we've seen that already. We signed an MOU last year in January of 2024. Even the year before that, Philippines was one of the first countries, in fact, again, it was the first country to receive something known as the Dark Vessel Detection Program, which allows Philippines to have better maritime domain awareness and track illegal fishing activities and just in general illegal activities. So it's a great program that utilizes private sector know-how. So it's a Canadian space company called MDA Space that actually pioneered the technology, and then our government uses it and now has given it to the Philippines authorities as well. I'm happy to note that that program is expanding, and Taiwan just received dark vessel detection support as well from Canada. So maybe same would happen with the Visiting Forces Agreement, that we'll extend it to the region more broadly.
But Vina, let me take a step back
Sure.
and tell us about, I know it's only 3 years old, but tell us about Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy,
Sure.
which is kind of in its sort of like a toddler stage.
Sure, yeah. Past terrible twos, I
Yes,
guess. So
yes.
that's useful to note. Yeah, so I mean, obviously Canada is a Pacific country. Our organization, Asia Pacific Foundation, is headquartered in Vancouver, and we've been around for 40 years, in part in recognition of the fact that Canada needs to do much more with the Indo-Pacific in general, right? So we've known this for a while, but I think that effort on the part of both the government of Canada, but also civil society organizations like ours, undertook a major boost basically in 2022, when we launched the Indo-Pacific strategy. And that kind of was a recognition that Canada's continued prosperity and security will depend on the relationship we have with this really dynamic region, because so much of economic growth, so much of innovation is happening here, and Canada wanted to be a part of that. At the same time, also, we have flashpoints in the region, right? So South China Sea, Taiwan, obviously what's happening on the Korean Peninsula. So in addition to being an economic partner, Canada also needs to be a stakeholder in maintaining peace and stability in this region. So the Indo-Pacific strategy has multiple pillars, peace and security being the first one, economic cooperation, trade, investment being the second one. There's also a lot of emphasis on development, on climate, and then people-to-people ties. So that's the Indo-Pacific strategy. We say that it's like a whole-of-nation approach, recognizing that it's not just up to the government, right, to be able to engage in this region. We need Canadian businesses active here. We need Canadian civil society active here. We need understanding of each other, both in Canada and here, so kind of raising the profile. And actually, that effort also just got a huge sort of support from our Prime Minister being in the region, right? He was just with the ASEAN Summit and then the APAC Summit. So we see that that kind of high-level ministerial visits, prime ministerial visits, go a long way in reminding everyone why the region matters for Canada and what Canada can offer the region.
And for the Philippines, it's also good not to be so U.S.-centric.
Yes.
Right.
Well, for all of us, it's good not to be so U.S.-centric. I mean, I think in Canada, we recognize that too. I mean, our geography has made it so that 76% of our exports go to the U.S. Our economy, our security is so integrated with the U.S. And that has served us well, and I think that has served Philippines well as well. But the point now is that we need to diversify partnerships. And that kind of over-reliance on one partner comes with risks, and we're seeing that really on display now. So Canada is doubling down on its desire to diversify partnerships. Economic partnerships, security partnerships, and we're making a huge play in Southeast Asia, and Philippines is kind of that anchor state within Southeast Asia.
Yeah, we're glad to be the first.
Yeah, and we're also going to have a free trade agreement, not just the
Yes.
Philippines, but an ASEAN-Canada FTA. What is that going to look like in the era of Trump 2.0?
Yes, so actually the good news is we're going to have the ASEAN FTA, which obviously will include Philippines, and just as of 2 weeks ago or few weeks ago, there's conversations also between Canada and Philippines on our bilateral FTA. And when our Prime Minister met with your president just last week, they committed to expedite that. So they gave a big task to their officials to try to finalize that FTA in 1 year, so that when Philippines hosts the next ASEAN summit, here in Manila in a year's time, we can sign that. We'll see whether that happens. It's a huge ask, but at the very least, we'll have the ASEAN FTA, hopefully by then, which will then allow us to deepen our trade and economic relations. So the economies are quite complementary. What Canada has to offer by way of energy, food security, technology, investment, even educational services, growing middle class here in the Philippines, growing population here in the Philippines really wants all of those things. For the moment, our trade is relatively modest, about 3.8 billion a year, so there's so much room to grow. And having an FTA will make a difference. We've seen that with others. So for instance, Vietnam is a member of the CPTPP, the Comprehensive Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. Hard to say when you're jet-lagged. it's a mouthful.
That's a long acronym there.
It is a very, yes, CPTPP. So because Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, Singapore are members of CPTPP, especially with Vietnam, we've seen our trade between Canada and Vietnam really go up quite a bit. So I think if we have an FTA with Philippines as well, either through ASEAN or bilaterally, it'll open up even more opportunity, which hopefully our businesses will take up. Like I said, energy is a huge area, including in small modular reactors, SMRs. And Canada is pioneering commercialization of SMRs, so that's a huge priority for our government. So I'm quite excited about that.
Are Canadian businesses keen to invest in the Philippines? I mean, we are,
Yeah.
I'm sure you know, and you've seen it, and you've read about it. We are in the midst of a big, flood control scandal.
Yes,
And corruption.
yes, I have read about that. Yes. Yes.
Are companies keen, Canadian companies, doing business here?
Yeah, so less than a year ago, we had sort of what's known as Team Canada Trade Mission, and it was one of the most subscribed such trade missions in Canadian history. So I think about 400 different Canadian companies and organizations came because there is an interest. And I think that's in part because we recognize the dynamism of Southeast Asia and Philippines in general, the growing population, young population, right? And again, complementarity of economies. It's also partly because we've had some Canadian companies here for 140 years, like Manulife, for instance, right? Which is, I think sometimes people here forget that that's a Canadian company, which is a testament to their success. They've really become local, became part of the business culture here. So I think that people-to-people connection, that legacy of some businesses being here for many years, the fact that there is a recognition that Philippines is growing and that our economies are complementary, certainly has made Canadian businesses interested. Now there are challenges on both sides, right? So like I don't want to paint a really overly optimistic picture. Challenges.
Like what?
Well, so you mentioned sort of ease of doing business, corruption, political instability. In Canadian case, what we need to address is the infrastructure to enable trade. So like I say, we have a lot to offer the world in terms of energy, in terms of food, all of these resources. But historically, we've sold it all to the US because all of the infrastructure is north-south, right? So we have these beautiful oceans on both sides and to the north on all three sides. And it's hard to get stuff out into the world. So we need to build the infrastructure. And that takes time and that takes investment. And also a lot of our businesses, maybe like yours, are SMEs. They're smaller. So for them, getting on a plane and coming to a place like Manila, which is 15, 16 hours away on a direct flight, may seem really far away, right? So to the extent that our SMEs are ready to do business, they go to the US. Now, all of that is changing.
Yes.
Because of President Trump, and I think people are more willing to look places where they hadn't looked before. So on balance, I'm very optimistic about what's possible.
All right, well, Vina, going back to the SOVFA,
Yes.
well, it was already anticipated that this could heighten tensions between Manila and Beijing.
Yeah.
And as we heard earlier from the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, they didn't seem too happy with this agreement. How how can we expect Canada to support the Philippines diplomatically in times like this?
Yeah, so Canada has been in support of Philippines. We've been in democratic solidarity with each other for a while. So anytime there's an incident in West Philippine Sea, Canada usually stands with the Philippines and sort of stands with the international law, with UNCLOS, saying that we need to uphold it, that we need to de-escalate. So I think there's already a history of that. So Canada has been doing that and continues to do that. I think with this agreement, that will actually become deeper. And I think we shouldn't give too much weight to what China said in this case, because that's their normal line. That's what they've said every time
It's
the Philippines has done this. You've now
But retaliation against Canada. What kind of retaliation can
I hope that this particular development isn't going to solicit retaliation, in part because we've also turned the page in our relationship with China. You may have seen that our Prime Minister met with President Xi on the margins of APAC. And both declared that this is kind of a new era in the relationship, that they're trying to rebuild relations. So I don't expect a strong reaction to this. In part also, as I mentioned, this has been going on now for a few years. Canada has been very active in supporting Philippines, defending its territorial rights, defending the ruling of 2016 arbitrary award. So there is a history here of Canadian defense diplomacy in support of rules-based order, in support of international law. So it's not about Canada picking sides, it's about Canada being on the side of international law, because as a middle-sized country, our security and stability depends on that rules-based order.
Can you comment on the approach that the Philippines has taken,
Yes.
having
Your transparency
all these,
initiative,
alliances,
yes.
How do you see that strengthening our hand?
Yeah, no, Philippines has taken a really courageous approach. Both your transparency initiative, which kind of brings the world's attention what is happening in West Philippine Sea, kind of the aggressive actions of China in particular. I think that has raised awareness, and that's very good, and it needs to continue. At the same time, obviously, you also need to deepen relations with others for reasons we mentioned, that while U.S. is your treaty ally, it's good to have others invested.
Yes.
So Japan, Australia, of course, now Canada as well. Europeans are here too, New Zealand, France. I think, it shows that maintaining stability, maintaining South China Sea open for commerce, and maintaining sort of that rules-based order here is relevant for everybody. This is not just Philippines' fight, right? So what happens here will have implications for what happens in other spots which have territorial disputes or are contested. I mean, I know it's easy to say that kind of rules-based order is unraveling because of what's happening in the US, what's happening in China, but other countries need to now step up and try to preserve as much of it as possible.
Canada most especially.
Well, I don't know if most especially, but certainly Canada, we need to do our part. And I think that's what the Visiting Forces Agreement is about. That's what our Indo-Pacific strategy is about. That's what the presence of more and more Canadians in the region is about, right? So here in Manila, just as part of our Indo-Pacific strategy, we opened an office on agri-food and agriculture, right? Again, recognizing that this is a Canadian strength. And the region really prioritizes food security and wants to be able to have a lot more for its growing population, right? So I think you'll see a lot more Canadian presence and participation in the region.
So we'll be seeing more of you.
I hope so. I hope so, yes.
But one final question for
Sure.
you, Vina, before we let you go. What effect will this have on Canada and China's relations? We recently saw Canadian Prime Minister meeting with Xi Jinping in the APEC summit.
Yeah. So I think Canada-China relations is complex. It will continue to have its challenges, strategic challenges, but there's also now a recognition on the part of Canada that we need to diversify our trading relationships. Our Prime Minister has set a really ambitious goal of doubling non-US trade in a decade. And China will need to be part of that equation, given that they are a very large economy and a large market. But China also comes with risks, and doing too much or being too dependent on China for any one thing creates strategic vulnerability, and we need to avoid that. And we need to recognize that that kind of a complex relationship is going to have moments of disagreement. We shouldn't self-censor ourselves. We should, as much as possible, maintain agency and collectively work with others who share some of our concerns with respect to the challenges that China is bringing when it comes to international law or when it comes to rules-based order.
Happy Remembrance Day before we
Oh,
let you
yes,
go.
thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
Well, we thank you for coming. That was Vina Najibullah, Vice President of Research and Strategy at the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada.
We're just going to pause for another breather, but right after that, religious sect Iglesia ni Cristo is staging what it calls a peaceful rally for transparency for 3 straight days. The details of that when the big story returns. Keep it here, One News.
Mga alas 7 na, di kami santunin niyo. Ano ka? Ano ka?
The big story is back with State Weather Bureau Pag-asa reporting that Typhoon Tino has weakened. However, it remains a threat to the Negros Island region. And joining us now is Maria Aleta Nogra of the Office of Civil Defense, Negros Island region. Tell us, kamusta po ang sitwasyon dyan ngayon?
Yes, good evening po.
Good evening.
Ngayon po, yes. Ngayon po, wala na po yung hangin at ulan dito po sa Bacolod City. Pero may mga report pa po tayo ng mga power interruptions. And kasalukuyan po meron tayong mga 1,365 families na nag-preemptive evacuation for ito po ay mga 4,528 persons. 99 barangays are affected at 11 municipalities and cities in Negros Occidental at isa po sa Negros Oriental. So based naman po sa DROMIC report, around 235 families po yung nasa evacuation center or 391 persons. And presently, as of the situation report ng Regional Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council ng Negros Island Region, around 8 po yung casualties, no? And around 24 po yung missing, pero kasalukuyan po itong bine-verify natin. And may mga reported damages na po sa houses, pero kasalukuyan pong bine-verify din. So around 3 houses were totally damaged. Ito po ay nasa Victorias City. May mga roads na unpassable po sa kasalukuyan, around 4, and 7 bridges ang mga na-reported na nasira po dito sa Negros Island region. For the whole day, yes po.
May you give us the situation, ang condition ngayon ng Taytay River, dun po sa Intigiwan at yung hanging bridge sa Sitio Palaypay. Ano pong condition doon?
Yung mga ano po natin, yung mga naitala po namin dito sa Barangay Inulingan po na bridge, no, yung na cut off po, no, nasira dahil po sa flooding. Yan po ma'am yung mga reported na mga bridges dito sa Negros. Yung nasa report lang po namin ay yung sa Barangay Inulingan and then yung Bailey Bridge po sa Bago City.
Meron po bang nagaganap na lahar flow mula sa Mount Canlaon?
Yes po. Kanina po yung lahar flow dun sa Ibid Creek sa La Castellana. So, nakapag-preemptive evacuation naman po yung mga families na exposed doon sa lahar flow sa La Castellana. Along po ito sa Ibid Creek.
Gaanong kalakas po yung lahar flow na yon? Nakakapinsala po ng mga bahayan? Nadala ba ang mga bahay?
Nung mga past pa po na mga weather disturbance, may mga bahay na po na nasira due to the lahar flow sa La Castellana.
Okay,
So yung mga families po doon ay wala na po silang wala na pong nakatira doon sa area. So yung mga bahay po doon previously that are situated doon po sa area, nasira na unti-unti ng lahar flow, so nagsilikas na po sila.
Okay. Ngayon po, panghuli na lamang, ano po ang assistance at relief operations na isinasagawa ninyo para sa mga komunidad na apektado?
Yung ating pong DSWD ay may mga prepositioned sila na mga non-food items na gagamitin po ng ating mga LGUs para ma-augment po yung kanilang pamimigay ng mga relief goods. And kasalukuyan po yung ating regional director kasama po ng Chief Operations ng Office of Civil Defense NIR ay nasa field to also assess the situation. At tomorrow, bukas po, as soon as maging okay yung panahon, magkakaroon din ng rapid damage assessment and needs analysis yung RDRMC team para malaman pa po kung ano pa yung mga in-depth needs, no, para sa mga nabiktima po ng Typhoon Tino.
Ma'am, paano nyo ikukumpara ang lakas ni Tino sa mga nagdaang bagyo dyan sa lugar ninyo?
Actually, yung sa Negros po, nakaranas din sila ng Typhoon Odette. No, yun naman ay mostly Bacolod City and then sa Kabangkalan area. Ngayon po, medyo southern part ng Negros from at saka meron din sa northern part. So malakas din po siya and marami din pong power interruptions and displaced persons. Pero ngayon po, marami pong nagre-request ng search and rescue dahil po na-trap sila sa baha. No? So may mga bus na trap sa baha. So ongoing po yung pag-conduct ng search and rescue. And then yung mga hindi po nakapag-preemptively evacuate, like sa ilang LGUs, no, nagpapunta po ng search and rescue team, yung provincial government in cooperation with the national government, like yung ating Philippine Coast Guard, Bureau of Fire Protection, Philippine National Police, and pati rin po yung ating 303rd Brigade dito po sa Negros.
Okay, sana po ma-rescue na yung mga natrap sa bus at saka yung mga naipit, no, sa baha. Marami pong salamat sa inyong update, Maria Aletha Nogra of the Office of Civil Defense. And now let's see other stories making headlines this Tuesday. Armed Forces Chief General Romeo Browner says the Philippines must be ready to defend itself alone for up to 30 days in case a war breaks out. That's part of a directive from President Marcos to the AFP before reinforcements under the Mutual Defense Treaty, or MDT, could arrive. The 1951 MDT obliges both the U.S. and the Philippines to respond to armed attacks on each other and extends to, quote, anywhere in the South China Sea. While Bronner did not name specific adversaries, his remarks come amid rising tensions with China in the West Philippine Sea.
On to another development. The Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, has recommended administrative complaints against former Public Works Secretary Manuel Bonoan and other DPWH officials. That's over alleged irregularities in a 72.3 million peso flood control project in Plaridel, Bulacan. This is the first time Bonoan is named among recommended respondents before the Office of the Ombudsman. The DPWH officials were accused of grave misconduct and gross negligence, while engineers and a contractor face potential criminal cases for graft, malversation, and procurement violations. The Ombudsman will now review the findings to determine whether formal cases will be filed in court.
Meantime, the Iglesia ni Cristo, or INC, is set to hold a 3-day rally at the People Power Monument in Quezon City from November 16 to 18. In a letter to the city government, the religious sect requested approval and logistical support for what it calls a, quote, peaceful rally for transparency. INC expects around 300,000 participants per day. It also said that it is ready to meet with city officials to finalize preparations and comply with all regulations.
And Malacanang has announced that government employees will receive their Christmas bonuses early this year, along with an additional 5,000 peso cash gift. Around 1.8 million state workers will get the package on the first payroll of November. The Budget Department says the bonus is equivalent to 1 month of basic pay. To qualify, employees must have already rendered at least 4 months of service since January 1st and must be in government service as of October 31st.
And now on to another story. Think Ka Muna Pilipinas and UNESCO have successfully wrapped up the Philippine Media and Information Literary Conference, or MILCON 2025. Let's get more details from mobile journalist Francis Rivera. Go ahead with your report, Francis. What's up?
Good evening sa inyo dyan. Think Ka Muna conducts its Philippine...
Go ahead.
Think Ka Muna conducts its Philippine Media and Information Literacy Conference, or PhilCon 2025, with the theme of Truth the Fire, Empowering Critical Thinking at the Age of AI. Sa naganap nga na discussion ay pinangunahan niya ni CEO and President of Media Quest and Signal, Jane Jimenez Basas. Sumentro ang kanyang speech na binahagi nito ang role ng MIL para sa nation building. Ganon din, marami ding mga nag-share ng kanilang mga insights at discussions, kabilang na nga dyan ang mga panelists, sina Ed Lingao at sina Carlo Concepcion. Okay, ang pagiging media literate naman, ang pagiging naging sentro ng kanilang discussion. Nahati sa tatlo ang discussion o nahati sa tatlo ang talk no, ng buong MILCON 2025 na una nga dyan, education, media, and ang huli ay ang technology. Hangarin nila na labanan ang fake news at mas gawing useful ang paggamit ng AI, lalo na ngayon na dumadami ang misinformation at ang fake news.
Alright, maraming salamat sa iyong update. That was mobile journalist Francis Rivera over there reporting for us live.
Okay, and before we go tonight, we bring you our big picture. Meet People Magazine's sexiest man alive, and it's none other than Bridgerton and Wicked star Jonathan Bailey. He is the first openly gay man to receive the title in the magazine's 40-year history. Bailey, who came out back in 2018, rose to fame on British stage and screen, breaking through with Broadchurch before playing Anthony Bridgerton on Netflix. He later starred in Jurassic World Rebirth and performed in both parts of Wicked, with the second part premiering later this month. Do you agree?
Yes.
He's the sexiest man alive.
Oh yeah, he's pretty sexy. And his dog is cute. So that got
You know
me.
that sexiest man alive, parang, can you single out just one guy for that?
I guess no.
You
That's
know,
why they have a
for that
panel.
title.
Imagine the arguments that happen. Hindi, siya.
All right, but congratulations to Jonathan for being named the sexiest man.
And sorry, ladies.
Yeah.
Sorry, lady. Okay lang. Lahat may market.
Yeah. I loved him in Bridgerton too.
Yes.
That was a good.
Yeah.
His
Is there
chemistry
a sequel
with
to the? Is there gonna be a third?
There is, di ba? Yeah.
What?
third?
But it's
Focus
taking so
on-
long. The other Is it out
Tapos
na?
na?
Yeah, it's out na.
What?
Yeah.
So, four na pala.
Yes.
Dapat 4 na.
Ah,
Okay. I've only watched 2, so you know what
You
I'm
have
gonna do
something to
tonight.
watch tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. And for this Tuesday, that's it for the big story. Thank you so much for watching.
We are back here tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. We'll see you then.
Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a good night.